Shimano were not the first to release electronic group sets when Di2 was launched back in 2009, but it's fair to say they were the first to actually get it right. And here we are, now riding the latest and greatest Di2, the third generation, and what has actually changed? And how did we even get here? Let's start back at the beginning then, shall we? Shimano released their first generation Gerace 7970 to an initially skeptical public. Why put electronics on a bike when mechanical was already so efficient? Well, fortunately for us, Shimano had realised the limits of mechanical. It was inconsistent for a start, it's open to user error, and its performance can degrade in poor conditions. And also, your shifting options are inherently limited. So, they set about their work. And according to Shimano, it took them 4 years to create that first generation. But they weren't actually starting from scratch. They had already got Di2 for town bikes. They called it smoother, and while ultimately it didn't really catch on, what they had created was internal gear shifting. It was electronically activated and even had an automatic function. Now, it's a far cry from the Dura Ace that we know and love, but what Smoother did do was ultimately create a knowledge base within Shimano about electronics. And 7970 quickly changed perceptions of just what an electronic group set could do. So all fears about weatherproofing and battery life and reliability all completely disappeared. Dura Ace Di2 worked, and it was here to stay. Dura Ace 9070 followed up 4 years later. It was launched at the same time that Shimano also refreshed the mechanical group set. And the changes to Di2 were pretty significant. Firstly, and perhaps most importantly for those people that were still skeptical about electronic group sets, now Di2 weighed less than mechanical Dura Ace. And in order to do that, they'd stripped out 170 grams from that first generation, part of which could be attributed to the fact that the external battery was now internal, housed inside the frame. And then they'd also launched eTube, which is the ability to connect up your Di2 to your PC and then customize its functionality. So you could speed up shifts or slow them down, change what the buttons did, and indeed turn on or off the multi-shift function, which was also new to that generation. Now, for the nerds out there, the way they did this was by changing it to a PLC system, which stands for power line communication. And basically what that meant was that both energy and information could now pass along the same cable. And Shimano said they always anticipated that Di2 would be upgradable, customizable, and also programmable, and eTube allowed that. Which brings us up to here, the Dura Ace R9150 group set. Now, a lot has changed. We've got a new crank, we've got the first ever Shimano power meter. Even the way the rear derailleur attaches to the frame has changed, and the fact that it now accommodates an 11 to 30 cassette. But what about the Di2 parts? Well, the previously only exposed part of Di2 on the last group set, which was the junction box, has now been hidden away in the frame in a dedicated port, or in fact in the end of your handlebars. Now, these ones from Pro are actually dedicated specifically to Di2. They have a little port on the back there for the cable to escape. And that all up means the whole group set looks a lot cleaner, and indeed we're told it's more aerodynamic, thanks in part to a lot of pressure from one particular World Tour team. A World Tour team that's keen on marginal gains. I'm not sure you can guess which one. Then the whole group set is also more connected as well. There was an interim upgrade between version 2 and version 3 that allowed you to then connect up your Di2 to third-party devices via AMP+. So we're talking like Garmin head units here. And that connectivity is here on the 9150 group set, but there is also Bluetooth connectivity as well. So what that means is that you are now able to connect up to your Di2 using your phone or a tablet, which means that with the new eTube app, you can customize it to your heart's content. Then there's also a semi-automatic shifting function called a Synchro Shift. So when you switch it on, it effectively means that you don't have to think about your front derailleur. Your Di2 controls it for you, shifting from your little ring to your big ring and back again as it sees fit. Now, my initial fears that this would lead the front derailleur to shift far more than I ever would normally were actually completely unfounded, because instead of using all 22 gears sequentially, what it does is it instead uses 15 or so of your most efficient gears. So effectively, when you're in the smallest sprockets at the back, you will be in your big ring. And then as you shift up the cassette, when it gets to a certain point, it will then decide that you need to be in your little ring. And so you will find that when you use the largest sprockets at the back, that's the ring that you will be in. And believe it or not, this kind of best shifting practice actually ends up saving you watts, reasonably significant watts as well. There is also a semi-synchronized option, which means that a front shift results in an automatic correction shift at the back of maybe 1 or 2 sprockets, depending on how you choose to set it up. But perhaps one of the biggest shifts, if you pardon the pun, in this latest group set is the move to hydraulics. This is the first Dura Ace level group set to have dedicated hydraulic disc brakes. And that is a pretty significant moment. And it's at this point where perhaps we might start wondering what comes next. What is generation 4 of Di2 going to look like? Well, I'd put this question to Shimano's engineers, and having just spent 4 years working their butts off to bring this one to the market, they were understandably not too happy about going down that route. But they did have one very perceptive observation, and that is that the very nature of road riding is starting to change. The roads that we ride on are becoming ever more versatile, and the bikes that we use for it are following suit. And even the fact that Dura Ace is unashamedly a racing level group set, they pointed out that races themselves are also changing with ever more farm tracks or cobbles or gravel sections. And so perhaps the next generation of Di2 is going to be going down this route. For more videos about Shimano's Dura Ace group set, and indeed any tech in cycling, the first thing you should probably do is subscribe to GCM. To do that, just click on the globe. And that way you would always be in the right place for any forthcoming videos. But if you're after another video right now about Shimano Dura Ace, we were there at the very launch. And if you want to see that video, click just up there. Or for a first ride of the mechanical Dura Ace, which is in itself something of a masterpiece, click just up there.